Hello, hello, and welcome. I am starting this reading with a bit of a giggle because it seems so perfect for the full moon in Gemini, which is what we are here to discuss, that I have a little game of cat and mouse or dog and bird going on outside because my dog often doesn't want to eat her food when her food is presented to her, and the little Cape Robins come and steal her kibble. And so at the moment, she will wander off in one direction and a bird will come and steal a kibble, and she'll chase the bird past the window and then run back and decide to eat her food, lose interest, wander off. The robin will come in, and this is just a continual kind of game of catch. Now, Gemini, which is this full moon, and me, I'm a Gemini. So any of us that are Geminis are going to feel this more strongly, or if you have strong planets or points in Gemini or any of the other mutable signs, which would be Gemini, Pisces, Sagittarius, and what am I missing? Virgo. Sorry, Virgos. Yes, so those are the mutable signs. So now we're going to be looking at the playfulness, because that is what, and there's creativity, there's playfulness, there's curiosity, there's huge imagination when we speak Gemini. And obviously, as by now, if you've been watching any kind of readings with me or other people that do these readings, you will know that full moon means the sun and moon are opposite each other in the sky, and they're in this kind of dynamic of tug of war where they don't see eye to eye. But signs opposite each other are always more similar than you would think on one hand, and also completely different. There's this like two sides of the same coin kind of vibe. So when the full moon is happening in Gemini, that means that the sun is at the opposite side of the sky in Sagittarius. By the time we come to this full moon, the sun has just entered Sagittarius. It's been there for 5 days because the sun moves 1 degree a day and we start with 0 in astrology. So here is the sun. Let me make this a bit bigger. Oh, sorry, I don't think I mentioned the date of this moon. It is, and I've set it up for South Africa, so obviously just set it up for wherever you are. It's the 27th of November. And that may be different depending, as I say, where you are. And also, this particular mundane chart is showing Aquarius rising. That may not be true for wherever in the world you are. So don't worry too much where you see these planets on this chart. I know I say this all the time, but I'm going to just say it again. If you have a picture of your own chart, go look at where these are in your chart. That's going to be more profound for you to say that if you have Gemini in the second house, then go and put, where's 4 degrees of Gemini in my second house, and do I have anything around that place or at the squares or oppositions? And if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. But if you do know what square and opposition means, those tend to be what we call the more challenging Ptolemaic aspects. You can also look for trines and sextiles and the more flowing ones, but it's usually the slightly more challenging ones where we get the most leverage. I'm having a complete squirrel moment. I just saw a beautiful little sunbird up in the tree. Sorry, very Gemini here. What can I tell you? So the other thing I want to say is that if we're looking at a Gemini full moon, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury, and Mercury right over here in Sagittarius also. So the opposite sign, which means he's not at his best here because he's about as far from his own space as he can get. So if we think about Sagittarius being in many ways quite opposite to Gemini, we would say that, well, Mercury, who rules Gemini, who's really comfortable in Gemini, is a lot less comfortable on the furthest point from Gemini. Now, Gemini is about community, the trips that we take, every day, the things that we do every day, the places that we go every day or with regularity, like going to the grocery store or doing the school run for those of you who are parents, or whatever the case may be. It's our neighbors, it's our cousins, it's our siblings, it's those kind of spaces. So Gemini is very busy, very social, very connected in the microcosmic world that is yours. Sagittarius is all of those things but bigger, ruled by Jupiter. Bigger, think big. Sagittarius is connected but across oceans, across countries, across cultures, across religions. wanting to go and explore and expand and learn more. And also, Gemini is beginner mind and Sagittarius is kind of like higher learning. So Gemini and Sag both love to learn, and they both love to teach and preach even, but Gemini is just smaller with that. Sagittarius will be happier on a soapbox, and Lord knows I can stand on a soapbox. We might call this a soapbox, so all signs can do it, but just to start feeling that similarity and difference of these energies. So Mercury, the ruler of the Gemini full moon, is across the pond in Sagittarius, not at his strongest, because now instead of being able to do the small connections, like with my neighbor, I know you, he suddenly has to be on this big stage. And also, he's just moved into shadow. So he has a retrograde coming up, and a couple of days prior to this full moon, this big lunation, he has just begun his shadow period. So remembering that when we have a retrograde, it's over a certain degree point. In this case, it's, hang on, let me double check. It will be starting on the 13th of December at 8 degrees Capricorn, moving all the way back to 22 degrees Sag by January. So that means that when Mercury hit 22 degrees, all the way to where he gets to 8 degrees and goes retrograde, he's in a shadow. And that pre-shadow is going to be very, it'll be an important point at this full moon because it's starting to come into play. And it's the ruler, Mercury is the ruler of the lunation. So we might start getting an indication at this full moon, what is this Mercury retrograde going to bring up for us? So do pay attention to how you're thinking or not thinking, you know, if there's changes in your thinking or the words that you speak, the narrative, or are there changes in your narrative, those kinds of things, because what comes up in the pre-shadow is going to give us an indication of what's going to get really uncomfortable in retrograde. This tends to be how it works. Remember, it does depend on your individual chart, how strong this particular Mercury retrograde will be for you. So don't panic about it, but just the understanding of how retrogrades work. Pre-shadow, some stuff is starting to niggle with Mercury lens and Mercury and Sag and Capricorn lens even more specifically. Some stuff starts to niggle, some stuff starts to rise up. We get into the retrograde and suddenly it's like that's, I almost have this feeling of tearing metal, you know, it's so uncomfortable. And now we really have to deal with it, and we've got to get comfortable with uncomfortable, and we almost can't breathe with it. And then suddenly we go forward again, but we're not all of a sudden out of it, because now we have the next shadow. So that's where the third pass over those same degree points, 22 Sag to 8 Capricorn. So again, look at that space in your chart. And then as we go back into the last shadow, the third pass, that's when solutions start to present. It's almost like we had to get super uncomfortable in order to go, well, now I need to make some kind of a change. So it's this kind of push and pull dynamic, okay? And then full moons have that push and pull dynamic to a degree as well, but it's more pull, actually. A full moon is more pull. It's tug of war. We're pulling in opposite directions and we're not getting anywhere, or the stronger puller or the one with the most stamina is going to win the tug of war. But what's more interesting in terms of being able to change something is a square, because a square, which is a 90 degree, is going to create that pressure to change. There is more creativity, and the forced change can be easier for us if we choose to make the change. The tug of war feeling, the opposition feeling, is usually a tearing apart, a pulling apart of something to bring something else to life. Ultimately, it is still transformative, and ultimately it is still positive, I believe. That's my lens on these things, that nothing is for nothing. But the square is where we can go, okay, I don't like this, time to get dynamic, time to get creative, what can I do? And the reason I'm bringing that in is that there is powerful square energy in this lunation to Saturn, who is all about restructuring, who is all about putting in the work that is required to change. So Saturn during this lunation is at 0 degrees of Pisces, which is square to Mars at 2 degrees of Sag, Sun at 4 degrees of Sag, and Gemini moon 4 degrees. So this is a really powerful place. If we add Black Moon Lilith, interestingly enough, we have another strong dynamic into the mix. But let's not complicate things, because that would be the fourth point of the mutable angles, or the mutable cross. But we won't complicate things I don't think that my audience is there. But if you are there, mention that in the comments and I'll start to go a little deeper. But you just let me know. I want to keep this kind of simple. That's a very Gemini trait that I have, is to try and make complicated things more fun, playful, creative, simple, and easily digestible for people who are not wanting to spend the amount of hours studying astrology that some of us lunatics do, myself obviously included. So this T-square that we have between Saturn and the Sun-Moon opposition, which is always happening, Sun-Moon opposition at full moon, and Mars is in the mix. Mars was also very present for our last lunation, that Scorpio new moon, and then Mars and Sun had a conjunction. So Sun was behind Mars at that last lunation, and he's ahead of Mars at this one, but they're still traveling together at the moment. So there is an extra oomph at getting things done, because that's what Mars does. He takes us somewhere. He's like, let's do the thing. So he's kind of throwing a little bit more weight into the Sagittarius side of this lunation. And so I would really recommend as much playfulness as possible. Bring in playfulness, because that is I want to say that's a superpower for Gemini. And I know personally as a Gemini that I have a lot of playfulness in me, but equally can get so serious I forget to play. And I think that's also a dynamic that is very potentially going to show up here, because Saturn is involved, and Saturn can be too serious to play, and Mars can be like, either he wants to play or he's like, we've got to get the thing done now. And he's in Sagittarius. He wants to go, 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 go. And so there can be a little bit of uncomfortable pressure here, depending on how that's hitting your chart. It depends on how strongly it will be. So if you have early mutable signs, like I said earlier, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, Pisces, anything in those early signs, this is going to be a big one for you. You're definitely going to feel it. If you have strong Mercury in your chart, so that would be if you're a Gemini, because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, if you're a Virgo, because Virgo is also ruled by Mercury, or if you have Mercury in your chart in a strong placement, or having a lot of strong conversations with other planets, those would be times where, or you maybe if you're a Gemini rising, a Virgo rising, then Mercury is going to be strong in your chart. And Mercury is very like ready. Because he's in the pre-shadow, it can maybe even, you could almost liken it to a similar feeling to what that square energy is. Something's coming to the surface that's going to make me uncomfortable enough to be able to choose, do I change or don't I? So I think that's a really important thing to look at the moment. And then I'm just trying to think if there really is, there's always so much to talk about, obviously, because astrology is so complex. And even as I do these forecasts, I listen to numerous forecasts, because everybody has a different lens and you get something from each of those. And as a Gemini, obviously, this is the other thing about Geminis, versatility, diversity. I want more information. So this is a good time to take on information. If you're a Gemini moon, information is your safety zone. Like if you are going through emotional turmoil and you have a moon in Gemini, you will only feel safe if you get the facts, if you get the information. That's the kind of thing that will make you feel safe. So it's also to look at, what do I have in Gemini? For example, I don't have a Gemini moon. I have a Gemini sun, my expression, and Gemini Venus. That will be a different expression for me. So this is another way you can start to grow into understanding how that's impacting in your chart when we have a lunation, because you will have your natal chart, your birth chart, which is your blueprint. It's unique to you. It's always your greatest potential in all directions, good and bad, however you want to phrase that. It's the seed that is you. And you probably won't utilize every single thing in your blueprint to its zenith in your lifetime, but that's the opportunity. But when we look at how the transiting planets, the things that are happening right now, touch those things in your chart and trigger those things in your chart, activate those things in your chart, we can work with the waves of energy as they're being served to us like a dish. And we can turn our nose up and push the dish away and not get the wisdom, not get the nourishment, not get whatever the universe is offering us. And that is completely all right. We have free choice. Or we can say, okay, I don't know that I like this particular meal that you're serving me, but let me try it, because how do I know if I don't try? And if I don't like it, is there a way I could season it to my liking? Because that is where we get to play with the universe and with the cosmic curriculum as it presents itself to us. So one of the things I teach in my red tent is to start to break down piece by piece. What does this planet mean? What does this planet represent? How does it show up in your personal chart, so that people can learn to delineate and read for themselves one puzzle piece at a time, because this is super complicated at the best of times. It is over a lot of our heads, myself included, depending what I'm listening to. I'm learning a bit about harmonic astrology, and right now it's like going way over my head, and I'm just persisting because I'm that way inclined with astrology. But if you're looking to start getting a little bit more juice out of it, you might want to look in the link in my bio and find out more about my red tent offering, because this is where you can start to break it down. And if there are things whenever you find yourself at a reading, mine or anyone else's, that don't make sense to you, or you have no idea, it's like Greek, it's like another language, because astrology is another language, then just trust that the parts that you need to find out, you'll find out. Because Gemini, and I know I'm not speaking directly into the chart right now, but this is very indicative of this lunation's energy. This Gemini with Mercury going into shadow, Gemini full moon, opposite Sun, Mars, and Sag, squaring to Saturn in Pisces, is very much saying, how do I learn? How do I want to learn? What do I want to dive deeper into? What do I want to just keep surface level? What is fun? For me, learning is fun. I love learning. In fact, I could just learn all day, every day, and probably be happy, because I am always like, I'm voracious with information. I soak it up like a sponge. However, it's easy, and this is for me personally, it's easy for me to understand information and take on more and more and more. But in order for me to be able to retain that information in a way that I can access it, I mean, I believe we retain everything, but in a way that I can access it, is by sharing, is by teaching. So my modus operandi that I have learned for myself, this is something that you have to discover for yourself, is learn, teach, learn, teach, learn, teach. Because as I do that, I embody it. I bring it through in my yoga classes that way as well. I speak archetypally. I move like a planet. I bring those things in to my classes, and it channels through me. And that way I'm also learning and teaching literally at the same time. But it's more something that is more anchored in me. As somebody who doesn't have a lot of earth in my chart, I need to work to anchor that information. So these are the kind of things that you can be learning and looking at this full moon. How do I like to learn? When I learn, is it just for fun? Do I want to retain it? Like, you might be somebody who loves going to a quiz night and you want to hold on to loads of random general knowledge facts. And so that's just a thing that you do, and that's awesome. Or you may be somebody who wants to dive deeper into something, and then you have to think, well, what is my learning style? Because for whatever reason, as passionate as I am about this thing, I don't seem to remember anything. Maybe you say to yourself, am I passionate about this thing? Because I know at school, I was not a top student. I was very average. But when you take me into the things I'm passionate about, I'm a top student because I'm passionate about it. And as Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. So this is a good opportunity, this lunation, to say, what is my bliss? What do I want to dive into? And it can be a hobby, it can be a new sport. It doesn't have to be learning in terms of like studying astrology. It doesn't have to be that at all. What brings me joy? What is playful and fun for me? Sorry, I wonder if I can pause. Hold on. Have I paused the recording? I'm not sure. Hold on. Okay, so I have a feeling there that I paused the screen share, but not the recording, which will be really interesting for you to watch me getting the dog in. Very playful, very Gemini. Okay, so the point is you're going to look for the things that bring you joy. And you're also, remember, there's that square energy with Saturn. You're also going to get honest about what doesn't. What doesn't bring me joy? What needs a shuffle up? What needs a restructure? Because I need to be consuming information, both Sag and Gemini love information, consuming information in my life in a way that is expanding and joyful and creative. So if that is consuming information about tennis, because I'm taking up tennis, and consuming the information of the new people I'm meeting at the tennis club, that's the thing it is. It's fine. If it is, I've been watching too much news and I am absorbing so much fear and negativity right now, it's bringing me down, it's breaking my heart, it's crumpling my soul, then you might say, okay, well, maybe I'm consuming the wrong information. If you're not listening to enough music, I'd bring that in. What music makes me laugh? What music makes me dance around the kitchen while I'm making dinner? These are the kind of things that I think are going to be really, really powerful for us this full moon. And remember, under the light of a full moon, there is kind of more mania. So whether that is I am in a joyful creative space and you go into this wild frenzy of that, or whether you go into a trance state while you are dancing around your kitchen, or whatever it is, it's always brighter, more intense. The emotions, the experiences feel more and bigger at full moon. So let them be joyful, let them be fun. Make that a decision, make that a choice. Okay, I think I have waxed lyrical enough. If my pausing to get the dog in is part of this video, I'm not going to apologize. It just is what it is. It's the way the world works, but I want to apologize because that's who I am. But I'm not going to. I'm making a conscious choice to laugh in the face of those things. And if you didn't have to see that, then you can laugh at this comment. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate all your likes, shares, follows, subscribes. That keeps me motivated to keep doing this work, to keep putting myself out there in all different ways. And I love your comments at the bottom and look forward to being able to come back to you in the next lunation, which will be the Sagittarius new moon. Thank you so much for your time. All my links are below. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and push the little bell so you get notifications when my card readings come up or my forecasts come up. And yes, it really helps me if you do subscribe. So thank you very much in advance and have a beautiful full moon.